Hello and welcome to the Realizing Resilience podcast. I'm your host, Nate Fournier, and today, as always, we're sponsored by Reimagined Roots, an ecological and organic land care company serving central Massachusetts by converting boring grass lawns into beautiful, abundant, sensational ecosystems packed with food, medicine, and native plants. All right, so my resilience theme of the day today is networking. Yeah, one of those things, we can't do it alone. It's all about the people we surround ourselves with, and networking changed my life. There was a phase in my career where I shifted from being a mechanical engineer to being a salesman for an insulation company. So I was doing home energy assessments through the Mass Save program, which is a great example of collaboration between the private and public sector to insulate homes, to make homes more energy efficient for very low cost. It's all subsidized by the utility companies and the state. And, everybody who pays an electric bill pays into the program anyway. So it just makes sense to take advantage of. And I used to do the consultations for homeowners of how to reduce their energy bills. One of the first things I did was join an organization called BNI, which is Business Networking International, just a networking group where you walk into a room and there's 50 other business owners or representatives of businesses, and there's only one seat per industry. And so the whole premise is that you give a 30-second presentation, a commercial every morning, and teach everybody else in the room who you are and what you do and what are some good examples of your ideal client. Things to look for, things to listen for, so that you become one of those people that just has the Rolodex of people that a client may need, which is so valuable because even if you aren't able to provide the service for the client, you get to say, hey, I know a guy. And that's a great feeling. And a lot of clients really appreciate that because word of mouth referrals are the lifeblood of most small businesses. And so even if you aren't a business owner, there are different circles, different groups to just get out and meet people. To meet like-minded people is really important, really, really important, and harder to do. Ever since COVID, I feel like a lot of things are virtual now, and it's just a little bit harder to get out in person, but make the effort because it is so valuable. And it takes time to find people that you align with well enough to really consider a good friend or to become trustworthy. It takes years. And so when I was in BNI, it was really great because then I got to meet, I was also investing in real estate at the time. So I had just gotten my general contractor's license and I was flipping houses. And so being able to meet the plumber, the electrician, an HVAC guy, a general contractor, a lawyer, real estate specific attorney, and a mortgage broker, and just so many different people in different industries that are adjacent to my business, but also just in general in life, I became good friends with them. So really, really valuable circles to be in. I also joined Toastmasters, which is another good example of you don't have to be a business owner. And I recognized a bit of a weakness, an area of improvement in myself is my public speaking. And it's funny now that I'm doing a podcast because I never would have thought when I was a bit of a nerdy engineer so long ago that I would be comfortable talking in front of people. And going to Toastmasters was super valuable because I got to meet other people who are facing similar, who are striving towards similar goals. And I got to practice in a very low risk way, which was super, super valuable. So I highly encourage everybody, really. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to get out there, to meet other people, to surround yourself with people who you align with more than just, and I feel bad, but by default, some of your friends, some of my best friends from high school or college, I didn't do a great job of sticking with them. And I have a lot of guilt around this. It's a very layered psychology, but in high school, all my friends did was party and drink. In college, all my friends really did was just party and drink and hang out. And At the time, I was right there with them. But as I grew, and it seemed as though most people took conventional career tracks and they got a job they didn't like and they worked there 40 hours a week and they went home and they played video games or smoked weed and drank beers. And on the weekend, they just strived to get out of work so they could hang out with their friends and smoke and drink beers. And, I feel like I outgrew that circle, and maybe not fairly so, because as you reach 30 years old, and now a lot of those same friends have families, are married with children, and I'm not. And so now their time is pretty well consumed, and it's harder for me to reach out to them and ask if they want to hang out. But as a business owner, I mean, any free moment I get is immediately occupied with my to-do list. And I struggle with it. I do. There's a lot there. And what I really want and what I strive for is a circle of other entrepreneurs who understand the struggle, who also don't have much time, but are willing to network and to learn from each other and to grow. Like, I don't want to just hang out and play video games. Like, if we're going to hang out, I want to talk about the most recent book you read. I want to learn about your 5-year goals and what you're going to do today to get there. I want to have accountability buddies that we can push each other to become the best versions of ourselves. And it's hard to find, but they're out there. And I'm still searching for my circles, and I need to go to more networking meetups. It's funny how you forget the lessons of the past. And as I'm talking about this, of when I was 24 to 28 and I was networking like crazy, going to all of the mass landlords meetup, like landlord networking groups as well, finding off-market properties, like finding other landlords, surrounding yourself with people who are much more successful than I was at the time, felt really good. And now as I get older, I'm realizing that I need to take my own advice and get back out there and do more of the same. But there are these decisions that we have to make, and it's how we spend our time. And I liked, just recently I heard this concept of, there's no such thing as time management. Time ticks away no matter how much you try to change it, no matter what you try to do, and the only thing that we have control over are our priorities. So it shouldn't be time management. It's more like priority management. And that's a big shift when you start to frame all the things you need to do around priorities. Then it makes it a little bit more digestible, a little less overwhelming. And I believe the root of the word priority, like there's actually no such thing as priorities. And I think this is exaggerated a little bit, but that you can only ever have one priority. Like, the word isn't intended to have a plurality to it. And so what is your priority? And of course, with different buckets of life, you can have a priority for business, and then that can bullet down into marketing and financials and leadership and sales. And there's so many different areas. And then in your personal life, they're going to have a relationships bucket. And so what's your priority within your relationship? Or financials, personally, what is your priority within your financial budget and priority? Is it to save, or is it to reward yourself and treat yourself? So there's so many different things that require intentional effort. These aren't concepts, these psychologies, these decisions don't present themselves in a very effective way if you just go about your day and don't ever take serious time to stop and think about it and to journal. Another thing that I need to take my own advice for. I haven't journaled in a while, but it changed my life as well. There was this phase of my life, and for any young person listening, like between 18 and 24, 25 years old, where I became obsessed with personal development. I stumbled across an audiobook from Jim Rohn, and it changed everything for me. I had never considered before, what does it mean to engineer your own life? I'm a designer, by trade. Like I was a mechanical designer, now I'm a landscape designer. And so the ability to like use your conscious thought to create something out of nothing can be applied to our own personal lives as well. And to design your life the way that you want, because if you don't, then you just have to accept the default, which is what most people do. And it's unfortunate because with just a little bit of intentional thought, you can create a life of your dreams. You can set a plan in place that then subconsciously, you don't even need to be obsessive about it or super diligent about setting milestones and metrics and measure and creating stress about it, but just the effort of writing down a vision, writing down your thoughts. Where do you want to be in 1, 5, 10 years? What does success look like to you? Just planting that seed in your subconscious brain oftentimes allows the trajectory to find itself. I like the analogy of, driving on a road, right? Like we all are in a car on the road. Whether you're in a beat up 1995 Toyota Camry on a dirt road, having a hard go of it, or you're in a Porsche on the Autobahn. The way we level up in that way is just through intention and through planning. And knowing that, the Ferrari is going to cost a lot and you're going to have to sacrifice a lot to get there. And it's going to take a lot of effort. But then once you start cruising, that trajectory can be greater than you ever imagined. But maybe that's too much. Maybe you just want like a more reasonable middle ground and just knowing yourself well enough to find that spot that brings you fulfillment and joy and success, and however you define it is so important. But again, the whole point of this conversation is not to do it alone. And being lonely is so hard. And again, I face this, but surrounding yourself with people that you align with. I'm grateful as a business owner, and I think that we all can, any of us who are business owners, we hire people based on cultural fit, core values, skill sets. A lot of times we're choosing people who are more skilled in certain areas than we are. That's like my whole thing is I want to know enough to be dangerous about everything in the business, but then as quickly as possible, find somebody who's better at it than I am and bring them on our team. And then when you start to look around, there's this concept of 1 + 1 = 3. And with people, it applies quite obviously. When you have a team of people, and if everybody was the same skill set, and it's 1 + 1 = 2, now you have 2 people who are good, you're doubling the value. But when you have diversity in experience and skills and thought processes, when you bring those people together, the output can be far greater than the sum of the parts. And so business is one thing, but your personal life is another. Whether it be sport is obviously a great analogy. Like when you're on a sports team, the camaraderie, the friendships, the relationships that you develop as individuals who are working together to achieve a common goal is like a fundamental human desire and human need. There's all kinds of studies of people who have community and have relationships, living significantly longer, having less cancer and disease. Like there's so much fulfillment that comes from having community. And I think in this sphere of gardening and within Reimagined Roots and just this homesteading movement that we have right now, there is this burning desire to break the old system of the conventional suburbia, where everybody has their own place and their own fences, and they get in their car and they don't look at the neighbor, and you put your head down and you go to work and you have these routines that are so isolating. And there's a desire, this like deep, deep burning desire to create and have more community. And that's really my goal as I continue to grow. And one of the plans that I set in place when I was probably around 22, 23, before I even got into real estate, I thought I found permaculture as this mechanism of design for resilience, of creating a life of abundance in a very optimistic way. And I found that from a place of fear and pessimism, as a bit of a survivalist, like the fragility of the world around me scares me. Being able to find permaculture as this beautiful light, as this opportunity to create abundance through intentionality and design. And I thought, boy, I don't know if I can make a living doing that. That seems a little far-fetched. But, I also had this desire to create community and to live in an eco-village. And, and there's just so much stigma around it. Like, I don't want this stigma of this earthy, crunchy commune, eco-village, worshipping some guru and having orgies and taking drugs and like this classical 60s representation of the hippies movement and intentional communities. Boy, a commune, right? It's a community. It's just the word itself doesn't need to have this weight behind it, these stigmas. And it's really unfortunate. And it's fascinating to me, just collectively with group psychology and group think, how these seeds are planted and they stick with us through generations. Like, imagine a community of people who grew their own food and worked together and helped raise each other's kids, and just to have like friendships and family and different skill sets, like a village, kind of like, the way that we've evolved for thousands and thousands of years before 1940s or whenever the original suburban neighborhood, the very first suburbia was developed in Pennsylvania. Like before that, all we had were villages and communities centered around farms and food and skills. You had the blacksmith and the carpenter and the farmer, and we all had like these roles to play in the community, and we all shared resources and bartered, and it wasn't perfect, but boy, it seems like it'd be a lot better than what we're working with today in some ways. And so I like to think of, how do we design a future, a society where we have communities like this, like every cul-de-sac that has multi-million-dollar McMansions on it. Like, what if those were redesigned? What if we take that same footprint of land and think about it differently and say, how do we fit as many housing units as possible within this space, and how do we make it fully self-sufficient? In this homesteading movement, a lot of people want to live off-grid and be self-sufficient, but they want to do it by themselves. And that's not realistic. I think that for resilience sake and there's just so many reasons that that's not feasible. We need community. So to take that cul-de-sac and have it centered around a working farm, and instead of 5 McMansions, having 25 tiny houses, and not even tiny houses, but just like reasonable 800 square foot homes, whether they're townhomes or they're cool, like tree houses and geodesic domes. And, there's different versions of what this could look like. But I think for the sake of digestibility and acceptance, to be able to have typical small ranches, maybe 2 families, right? Maybe a raised ranch, that's a 2-family, but just normal small houses, but they're a little bit closer together. And there's a parking lot that then everybody has to walk down a beautiful walking path to get to their house. It's just so that you get to say hi to your neighbor. You get to walk by the flowers and have a little bit more relationship with the space, rather than just parking in your garage and going into your house and not actually being outside at all. We sacrifice some convenience for that, but I think that it's time to understand that convenience has taken away a lot. It's given us a lot, and it's taken away a lot, specifically connection and culture and relationships and the sense of being. Anyway, so, creating community, finding people that you align with, and hey, there's this movement right now where if you find the people who are looking to develop homesteads and looking to create communities, it's a dangerous space. It's like hard to find people who are authentic and genuine and do align, but they're out there. And I think there's a whole movement of this younger generation that is refusing to accept the norm, the status quo of go to school, get your degree, get in debt, work your job, buy the car you can't afford, have a family, and don't have, go to the bar with your buddies after work and just live a relatively simple life. And I think there's some rejection around that these days. And now people don't want to work. They don't want to go to a conventional school. They want to learn trades. They want to find other like-minded people. They want to grow food and have relationships and have connections. And it's happening. I think within our lifetime, it won't be long before my hurdle is to help. I would love to revolutionize the asinine zoning restrictions. I'm in Massachusetts, and boy, it's just awful. Just asinine between septic regulations and zoning regulations. Like, we have a housing crisis, and I'm not allowed to build a house on my 5 acres of property because I don't have enough frontage on the street. Just asinine. It doesn't make any sense. I know where it came from, but those days are over, and things are changing rapidly. And so buckle up, because a lot's going to be changing soon in the next few years. Find your people, find your community, connect and align with others who you share a vision with and share values with. Get uncomfortable. It's hard these days to find those circles, but go on meetup.com, join a sports team, like find some groups on Facebooks for local meetups. Don't just do it virtually. I mean, virtually is better than nothing, but boy, meet in person. Go get breakfast with somebody, have a beer with them, whatever it takes to create relationships with intentionality and authenticity, and get out there and just keep growing.